Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
I'm okay. Stupid phone. I had a headache most of the afternoon, but I think it's getting.
Good deal.
Hello, all eyes and butterfly. You with me, Joe?
I'm with you.
How are you doing this evening? You had a long day, right?
Yeah, and it just keeps on going.
I know, right?
If this is any indication, I still have not ordered dinner. I've been ordering dinner for like an hour, and I still haven't even taken off my tie yet from going to court.
Oh my goodness. That's like the first thing I probably would have done was strip the clothes off and then ordered some food. And then, then I probably would have fell asleep. So it's just whatever. So you got up early and headed down to court today.
Yes, very, very early. Very early.
Mhm. So how early? I didn't even know at what time did you get there? Was it a long line when you got there?
Yeah, so it was shorter at the almost the same time as when I went Friday. So Friday was opening day one. And I think I remember getting there between 3:30 and 4 or something like that, and I was about 35th in line and did not get in the morning session, did get in the afternoon. Today, this morning, I got there a little bit before 4, and I was 26th-ish. So the way it works is people will like set lawn chairs along that ramp to hold their space, and then they'll go sleep in their car to stay warm while their lawn chair holds their place in line. So it's kind of hard to get an accurate count because there are also two people actually literally sleeping in sleeping bags that were second and third in line. So when you say 26th and the history has been 24 public seats max, then you start to get a little worried and you start thinking, is it worth it? Is this really worth it? But you're like, I'm here and I'm going to find out by 8 o'clock, but somewhere between 8 o'clock and 8:30 if I'm getting in. So I might as well just stay here because otherwise I'm going home and going to bed.
Yeah,
But so got there at 4, 26th
covering for
ish
us.
in line, and Kevin and Anya were 2 and 3 spots ahead of me.
I
At
think somebody posted a picture of them today in line, and I think I see you back there.
I
I'm not.
probably was. I was right behind them. Yes,
I was gonna send it to you, and like, this is you, isn't it? 'Cause it looks like you. It was like a side profile shot, though. Did you have a cup of coffee in your hand?
I did.
That was you then.
I
I
did.
knew
I
it was
had
you.
I had a cup of crappy gas station coffee in my
Oh,
hand.
cried. I'm so sorry about that. That's not cool.
Um, but they were two people in front of me, and they said they got there a little bit after 2 in the morning. So between 2 in the morning and 4 in the morning, there were only there were only 2 spots taken, me and the person in front of me, and then the two guys behind me didn't even get there until 5 o'clock. So from 2 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning, there were only 4 spots taken. But those are the four iffy seats. Like you don't know if you're going to get in or not.
The ones that have been, just like Lawyer Lee and Andrea and Mata, the ones that are trying to get in there every day. I didn't know if there was still a lot of other people trying to get in, daily. We're glad that the ones that are getting in are making it in because, like, literally, a big shout out to all the guys and gals who are making it in and coming out and sharing all that they can with us as quickly as they can and as accurately as they can. It's really appreciated. And it can be taunting to get all your notes and to find everything that everybody is saying. And so today I've had a more comprehensive day with all that. I've been able to troll Twitter a little better and find some things going on. And I was hearing things come out throughout the day. So you're here to help us get the gist on all of that. So I appreciate you being here and doing that for us.
Yeah, there are people who are able to go out on the breaks and give updates to the people that follow them, and usually those are people that like Bob Mata that have a secured seat in there, and he has a secured seat with a family members. So there have been a lot of rumors swirling about that, and he kind of gave the lowdown a little bit on his live last night. He's not with the defense team; he's on the family's team, so
Right.
he's not violating a gag order, nothing like that. But anyway,
No,
uh,
he's been catching hell for a few months though, so he's used to it. So people can get off their, you know, whatever they're on. They just need to stop it and chill. But people are going to people.
yeah, yep, and they shouldn't obsess about who gets in where. We should be obsessing about justice for Aberty. Aberty. Good grief! I've been up
I,
since
yeah,
freaking
I'm going to give you grace on that, dude. I understand. I get it. Yeah. You know what? People can all quit getting mad at other people and just start blaming the one
yeah.
who's really to blame, which would be Judge Gold.
Yep,
You know,
100%. And there was a lot of discussion about that today in the line. I'm sure there is probably every day in the line. It's just it has gotten more organized since Friday. I will give them that. It is more organized. We did get in. I did get in, and the person that was with me and a couple of people behind them even got in also. So
oh, that's good.
yeah.
Um, I know there was some interesting testimony today, right?
Oh my gosh. I
So why
have
don't you give everybody the rundown of who actually was there today to testify?
okay. So the state opened with Kathy Shank. So Kathy Shank is a sweet older lady that grew up in Delphi, and she went to Purdue University. Go Boilers, boiler up. Um, and after she got her degree from Purdue, she moved out to Delphi in Carroll County. Well, I think she grew up in Delphi, but went to Purdue. But after she got her degree from Purdue, so she stayed in Carroll County and she worked for Child Protective Services or whatever the version of it was back 40 years, 50 years ago. And she said she spent 40 years working for them. So that's a good long life. And then she moved down to Florida.
Oh, oh, okay. Well,
So she,
Miss
but
Kathy S. That's what I've
yeah,
been calling her all day, Kathy S.
yeah.
Mm.
So anyway, long story short, she is the one that in 2022 discovered that Officer Dulin's lead sheet that from his interview with Richard Allen had been misfiled under Whiteman.
Yeah, so she apparently they were moving to a different location with to a different building. So they were moving things, right? And she found
Yes.
a file and realized I guess she had been working, for a few years on sorting everything and entering into the database.
Yes. Are you still there,
And
Salty?
in there was a
Okay.
file of, yeah.
You kind of
So in
faded.
there
You
was,
kind of faded out for a second.
did I? You were too.
Yep.
So maybe it's me on my end because I didn't hear you for a second a minute ago. So guys, if we start having issues and you can't hear me and I'm doing this crazy stuff, let me know because that means swamp signals upon us. Um, but yeah, so she moved to the new building. She finds this box with these with folders and files, and in there are the written st- uh, not statements, but I guess the tips and stuff like
They're
that.
lead sheets.
Right.
They're called lead sheets.
Okay. So that's when she ran across it, right? She decided to go through it and see what was there and start filing, and then she found it, correct?
Yes. So it wasn't a file that she found. It was actually a box. It was a box
Yeah.
of unfiled miscellaneous lead sheets that she found in actually one of her drawers. And
Okay.
so she finds this miscellaneous lead sheet for Richard Allen Whiteman, and she goes to the W's and she finds his other file. But attached to the lead sheet in that
So, guys,
is, are you missing me?
no, I think it's me. I couldn't hear you for a second. I looked down and my signal almost went away, but it's got full signal now. So if we begin to have issues, we will have to leave this stream and go to Joe's channel. But for now, I think we're okay.
Okay. But anyway, so she organized 14,000 tips, more or less, into 5 file cabinets alphabetically over the years. and between three different or two different moves from between three different buildings. So she's actually an amazing organizational woman. But she found this unfiled tip in a box in her drawer and went to the W's for Whiteman. And attached to the sheet that was in the file was Officer Dulin's narrative, what they call the narrative. So, in other words, his description of his interaction with Richard Allen on February 18th of 2017. So she realized looking at that sheet, she's like, I think I know a Richard Allen and I know that there's a Whiteman Street. So she kind of puts two and two together in her own head, and she takes it to Tony Liggett, who at the time was a detective and was the number two at the Carroll County Sheriff's Office behind Sheriff Lesenby.
Yeah. So that's when she because I saw that today that she knew there was a Whiteman Street, so she wondered. I mean, what would I mean? How would you? I mean, if you lived there in this tiny town, you're like Richard Allen Whiteman, because I've always wondered that. When they said the tip was found, and then we realized it had the Whiteman as the last name. Well, who figured out that that was wrong? You know, and so she's the one who did that, and
And
then
honestly, after her testimony, I was still a little bit confused because
yeah,
that was a question, and I can't even remember if it was on cross or if it was on direct or cross, but she was asked, so how did you make that oh, it was Baldwin on cross. He's like, so I'm a little bit confused. Explain to me how this whole thing went. And she explained it to him, and I was still a little confused. So I asked Andrea, who was two seats down from me, and she explained it to me, and I kind of understood better, but I still don't understand 100%. Like, just she had to have pulled out that Dulin narrative that had to have been attached to the lead sheet in the W file cabinet. I mean, that's the only way it could have gone down.
yeah, yeah. And so but out of all the 5 years, there had never been any other tips that come in naming Richard Allen. I heard that there were people that they had mentioned that tips did come in about, oh, I think my friend or my neighbor or whatever could sound like this or that, but nothing ever panned out, I guess. But I guess this was the only tip ever in all of that with that name on it. So that's how they discovered it. And then she turns it over to the sheriff, and then he takes it to calls Mullen in, right? The detective. Or
Um, Liggett. Um, so what? Let me look at my notes here. All right, we started on page one.
I agree, all eyes. It's still very confusing as to how she just. I mean, if I pick up the tip and I'm reading it and it says Richard Allen Whiteman, I'm just going to think that's the man's last name. I'm not going to go, oh, well, we got a street named that. I wonder if I take that off. Will Richard Allen be right? And then lo and behold, that's how it went.
I still don't understand 100%. Yeah. And she was entering, so she didn't start out entering tips into Orion, but she did end up entering tips into Orion. So
Yeah. Like she had been working with them for a long time at that point, right? Like
yes, she started in March of 2017. So the
she
beginnings.
started early on in the investigation because she
Yes.
volunteered, right?
Yes. She was a receptionist
Okay.
beginning in March of 2017, and then she got added on more duties. Her first duties that were added on, so they had taken all of these tips that they got and just put them in bankers boxes. And so her job was to take the bankers boxes and organize those in some meaningful way into file cabinets, which she did alphabetically. And at that
So,
time, she wasn't reading tips. They would
yeah.
not they told her, do not read the narratives, do not read the tips, just take them by the names, put the names on labels on the folders and put them in file cabinets.
Yeah, because from what I understand, she had to sign an NDA when she came on as volunteer, and had access to certain things like tips and things. But you're gonna tell her, don't read the tips, just go file them. Like I'd be like, everybody read them, please. Everybody read them, just in case. But I understand the jurors have been asking a lot of great questions over the time period here, and did one of the from what I have heard, one of the jurors' questions was how she figured
Okay, so let's see, the
It's
direct examination
important.
goes through page 3. Um, State Exhibit 228 was the lead sheet with a second sheet and a third sheet, and I didn't get to see what the second sheet and third sheet was. One of those was Officer Dulin's narrative, and maybe the second one was the Orion summary. So Orion is kind of like the in between. Orion like merges the lead sheets that they do like manually, and then they get entered into the database with the narrative sheets that also kind of get done manually.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a cluster. So then Baldwin crosses her, and he asks her, could there be a mistake on the sheets? And McClellan says, objection, that calls for speculation. Are you kidding me?
Your whole investigation is speculation, dude. Come on with that shit.
And Gull sustains the objection. And he
What?
says, there was a mistake, wasn't there? And she says, I don't know. Then he asks her to explain the Orion database entry part, and it's a 4-part system. It starts with a tip, and if that tip is considered to be legitimate, then they enter that tip into Orion, and then somebody snags that, and they follow up with whoever the person of interest is on that tip, and then they make a report, or they call it a narrative from that, and they file that report or narrative in Orion. But anyway, so you want to ask about jury questions. So she remembered in her mind. So she sees this tip that has to do with Richard Allen Whiteman, and
Mhm.
she had to have read the narrative from Dulin, because she says, "Well, I remembered that there was a girl that said that she ran into a man on a trail."
Yeah, she said she did read it, and then, she remembered the witnesses who had stated her who had
Right.
stated the man on the trail. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, exactly. And then she kind of put two and two together and said, well, I remembered this tip about the girl meeting a man, and here we have this Officer Dulin who says that there was a man that was out there that day, so maybe we should do something with this.
Well, yeah, the man told you he was out there and described what he was wearing, and then I guess she reads it and it's just like, "Oh, well, this," I mean, I don't blame her, and I probably would have done the same thing if I read the tip and I read, "Oh, this man says he was out there and he was wearing this clothing. Hmm, this
Right.
should probably be looked at by somebody." So, but they
Right.
should
But
have
if
done that
but
when
if
they
you
got
were
it all those years ago.
but if you were conspiracy minded, and
Mhm,
I'm not saying this is how it went down, but if you were conspiracy minded, Tony Liggett has won his primary for sheriff, and
mhm.
this came up today, and it was objected to, and the objection was sustained to bring it up for one witness, but then it was allowed to be brought up for Tony Liggett himself. But sorry about that, crazy dogs.
Oh, you're good.
Um, but if you're conspiracy minded, she's working very closely with Tony Liggett. In fact, she's the
Mhm.
one. She turns this into him.
Yeah.
And she said, so the jury question was, how did you know that the name was incorrect? And basically her answer was, well, just because I have a knowledge of the local area, just because I kind of know that Richard Allen, and there's a Whiteman Street, and I just kind of
So,
like
she
figured
claimed
it
that
out.
so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but, yeah, okay, so I knew that she had stated she knew there was a street named Whiteman, but she also stated today that she knew Richard Allen or knew of him?
I don't know that she. Gosh, I so wish this was broadcast. I so wish it was broadcast so we could like go back and watch that, because she might have, but I won't
I
swear to it under oath.
Yeah, because the reports that I've seen today, I hadn't heard that part, but I know she said, "Well, I knew there was a Whiteman Street, so I decided it could just be Richard Allen." But still, that makes I mean, what would make you think that, you know? mean, I get it. Oh, Whiteman. Oh, that's a street we have here in town. Well, I wonder what happens if I take that name off and just call him Richard Allen.
Right.
What still? It don't
It's
matter.
it's
It
curious. It's curious, but she was
doesn't matter
just
what his name is. What the
right.
hell was he wearing? What was he doing? Why did it take y'all 5 years? Yeah, all the things. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That's fine. That was the only jury question for her.
Yeah. Okay. I would ask the same question if I was a jury because it's been the question I've had all along, especially when we realized they claimed the last name was wrong. Then I'm like, well, how I think that way in certain circumstances, but I still need, if I'm going to point the finger at my client now, you need to tell me how you got there, you know? So that's always a curious question. And there's a lot of those questions in this case. So I'm glad that the jury is asking a lot of good questions.
They are, but foreshadowing, there were a couple of key witnesses today that they didn't ask any follow-up questions for, and I was actually kind of a little bit disappointed in them.
Really?
Yes, we can get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So then Nick McClelland calls Dulin, uh, Department of Natural Resources officer. He's in his full dress uniform with his badge and everything, very sharp looking. But I kind of actually like the way that Nick McClelland is presenting this case chronologically. Like he starts at the beginning and he's going through the people that are associated with this phase,
He
then
kind
the
of gave me.
witnesses.
I didn't watch a. I didn't watch a lot of Bob's live last night. It might have been a little bit I reviewed this morning. I was reviewing quite a few things early this morning, and he had made the statement that he, Nick wasn't so bad in the way he was presenting things earlier. So I don't know. It may not work out for him in the end, but he was, I guess, doing his laying it out correctly, like you're saying. So
Yeah, yes. So it's easier, I think, for the jury to follow. Like we go from point
yeah,
A to point B to point C to point D, and it's easier for
yeah.
us to follow too. But anyway, so Dulin's next in line. So she finds this tip, this lead sheet that has been in the file cabinet for 5 years with nobody acting on it, gives it to Liggett. So Liggett's first response is to call. Oh no, he gives it to Mullen, and then Mullen calls Dulin to say, or I don't even know. I don't know if it was
Are
Liggett or
you?
Mullen who called
Hang on,
Dulin.
Joe. I'm sorry. Let me let me interrupt you for 1 second. Butterfly, let me know if Joe is breaking up. Or can you guys hear him, or is it just me? Because I want to make sure my signals get is good and strong. It's showing that it's coming in and out, in and out. And I think when it does that, Joe's going in and out. And I just need to make sure you guys can hear him. Because if we're having that kind of issue, we can fix this. But I want to.
I think you might be
Okay,
having a
he's
little bit of swamp signal or
okay.
something.
So I'm the one that's not hearing you sometimes. Okay.
Okay, so anyway, she passes on the tip to Liggett. I think Liggett may have called Dulin and asked him for the files. No, that was Mullen. Liggett gave it to Mullen, and Mullen got the files from Liggett, but or from Dulin. But anyway, so we go to Dan Dulin
Okay.
because he's the one that wrote the narrative that's included in that file that's misfiled under W for the street name.
Yeah, so apparently he kept files of the people he talked to throughout the process because he's also going to come in and claim that he went back and listened to all the recordings of people he did speak with and couldn't find the one where he spoke to Alan.
Correct. And he was actually
Okay.
asked on cross if he, so foreshadowing again, but I'll spill the beans, if he recorded that. And he said no, he didn't record the one with Rick Allen. I don't think that whoever crossed him, and I think it was Baldwin. No, it was Rosie that crossed him. Rosie. So Friday, I was with a guy who is a distant cousin from Rosie, and he said his grandmother always pronounced it Rosie. So I I I get that mixed up from time to time. Rozzy and Rosie, but Rosie is Italian, so the long O is actually the correct pronunciation according to Italians. Rosie. But anyway, Rosie asked him on cross if he recorded. He said no, and I don't think Rosie asked him why. Why didn't you record it? But it kind of might have been more of a conversational thing. Anyway, he's been a conservation officer for 26 years. And Nick McClellan on direct says, in this courtroom, that microphone that's in front of you is just for the gallery. It's not for the defense or the state table or for the jury. That microphone is not for us. So I need you to speak up in your best outdoor voice. And this is to a conservation officer.
Right.
And I swear that there were times when he was quieter than Kathy Shank was.
Well, be heard. That's what I'm thinking. But it's so from what I understand, Dulin was tasked with going out and following up on tips and leads and interviewing people that needed to be interviewed. And I guess Alan had already called and said he had been at the trails that day. So then Dulin was then tasked to get in touch with Richard Allen and meet with him to take his information.
Right, that's correct. And Dulin had two different types of investigations to track down these leads. So he would just go into the what was the unified command name or whatever it was? I keep forgetting what they call that, but he would go in there in the morning and he would pick up lead sheets or a lead sheet. We don't know how many he would pick up, and he would just start tracking them down. And one type of lead, he would call the person that was a person of interest, and he would talk to them, and he would file a report based on his conversation with that person, and then he would just turn in that report and go on to the next one. There was another type of investigation that he would do where they would tell him, okay, once you talk to this person, you need to keep following that lead all the way down as far as it will take you. Like if Rick Allen says that he was going by the Hoosier Harvest Store, then you need to go to the Hoosier Harvest Store and check out their cameras type of thing. That was not the case with his investigation with Rick Allen. He was just doing type 1, which was, I'm going to call him, I'm going to report what he told me and file that report. So that's what he did. He was not tasked with actually like investigating the things that Rick Allen claimed to him.
Right. He was just there to take leads and information and speak with the people and write everything and down or record it or whatever.
Right.
Butterfly, can you drop Joe's link in the chat, please, in case we need to go over there. Everyone, please go sub up to Joe when she dropped to go over there. But I just wanted to get that out there before we got any further. Thank you, Butterfly. All right, I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No worries. So, talked about the two types of leads. The lead sheet for RA. So they handed the lead sheet out to the jury to look at it, and Officer Dulin explained the different sections to it. And here is a key point that was made today. So he says when he received that lead sheet with the Rick Allen's phone number on it, he called Rick Allen. And his personal preference as an investigator is, number one, to meet the person of interest at their residence. Like he wants to drive to their house and talk to them at their house. Didn't explain why that was his preference. That's just his preference. Preference number two is to meet them at the office of a law enforcement agency. So let's go meet at the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. Let's go meet at the Delphi City Police Station. Let's meet at some type of law enforcement. And he said that Rick Allen, this is his words, refused to meet at his home or at a law enforcement facility, and instead he wanted to meet in the parking lot of a grocery store. Rick Allen, at this point, very clearly and noticeably shakes his head no. As in, that did not happen. I did not refuse for you to come to my house. And we'll learn later on cross that it's because he was already on the way to the grocery store. There's two grocery stores in Delphi. There's one that's kind of on the north end, and there's one that's kind of on the southwest end, the Shop and Save. And they ended up meeting at the Shop and Save, which was the closer one to Rick Allen's home. And there was kind of some back and forth on that one too, between Rosie and Dulin, kind of like,
Yeah, I
go
saw
ahead.
that come out today as well, where he said the prosecution, when they had him up there, that were trying to establish that Rick didn't, want to meet at his home, didn't want to meet at the police station, and all that. And then on a cross, it was brought up that no, Rick was on the way to the grocery store, so why not meet me there?
Right. And I have it in my notes, not just he didn't want to. I'm pretty sure that Dulin testified that he refused to meet at his home or
Yeah,
law
that's
enforcement
that's what
facility.
they're saying. From what other things I've seen as well, that you're right. That that's was his words.
And that's one of the few times that I've seen Rick Allen actually like be responsive to something that a witness is saying. He shook his head very clearly. No, that's not the way it was.
Mm,
Anyway, so he testified that he saw three girls at the Freedom Bridge at the beginning of it. And then he parked at, and Dulin notes in his report, he parked at the Farm Bureau building. There's no such thing over there in that area. And Dulin admits that, hey, I don't think he told me Farm Bureau. I think that's what I wrote down. He described the location of it, and the location is where the old CPS building was.
yeah,
So he's like, I don't think he was telling me the wrong building. I just think I wrote down the wrong building. But I know the location that he described to me was next to the Hoosier Heartland corridor, like inside the Hoosier Heartland Highway, which would be where the old CPS building was.
yeah, and that's right there on 300 North, right?
Yes, after it turns around and heads north past the
Mhm.
Mears Farm.
Yeah,
Um, and so as he's interviewing him in the shop and save a lot, whatever it is, the parking lot of the grocery store, he's writing notes on the back of his lead sheet. And no, I did not audio or video record it. He asked him why, but I couldn't hear the response why he didn't. That was inaudible to me in the back row. So
I
he,
don't think he has a good explanation as to why he didn't. There's not one. I mean, if
what I've heard from multiple law enforcement officers in this, when they didn't record something that probably should have, like maybe serving a search warrant in a suspect's home, and you can just turn on a body cam, or you can go around with your cell phone or whatever. Anyway, what I've heard was, well, I didn't think he was really, I didn't know that he was a suspect at the time that I interviewed him.
well, yeah, he wasn't at the time.
But
Um,
he did audio and video record others, apparently,
I
according
was
to his
about to say,
testimony. Yeah.
according to his testimony, he had an entire file um, with recorded statements and things that he had taught with interviews with other people. And he sat and listened to all of them. And that's when he realized none of those were Rick Allen's. So he must not have recorded it. That's what he said. And I'm like, well, okay, so let me just say Dan Dulin doesn't record Richard Allen's statement. Um, Sarah Carball testified that you've lost an hour, at least an hour of her interview where she states muddy and bloody. The state has also come out and said that Carroll County recorded over suspect statements. So it's either all lies or they're just really bad investigators, which I think both is true.
Yes, two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, right here, it's these people are crazy.
So then we get state's evidence. Oh, so while they're talking in the grocery store parking lot, he asked to see Richard Allen's phone, and I don't think Rick handed the phone over to him, but he did show him some identification numbers on that phone.
That's
And
what I heard. That's what I had, heard as well. That he didn't. That he asked him to see the phone, and he shows him his phone. And there was apparently some unique identifiers. Like, what is that supposed to mean?
Yeah,
What do they mean by unique identifiers? I'd
we
like to get a little more
yeah, he told them to like go. So I'm actually right now
elaborate. Also
looking at the
heard that
settings.
that came about. Uh-huh.
I'm looking at the
Go ahead.
settings on my phone, and he said, go into your settings and look at this and look at this and see if you can pull up our phones do have unique identifiers. And I think he was trying to help him find it. And maybe they found one and he wrote down what it was.
Because now they're also stating that out of all the phones they took from Rick Allen's home, and there was quite a bit, there was no connection between him and the victims on any of the devices. But the phone that Allen used in 2017 and 2022 is nowhere to be found, or at least the one in 2017. Not, I don't know if it's that same exact phone, but whatever phone Rick Allen allegedly was using during that time frame, they claim they don't have it.
Right.
Where
That
did?
that comes up
Okay,
later in Holman's testimony when they're talking about the serving the search warrant and the phones they did find and the phones they didn't find. And that was objected to by the defense because
guys, I am so sorry. Joe, we may have to take this down and go jump on your channel, because I am having a hard time. It keeps cutting in and out for some damn reason.
okay.
Um, I agree there, All Eyes. He did tell him, from what we're hearing, between 1:30 and 3:30. If that's true, that was immediate grounds for you're a suspect, right? And, like, I don't know, it's just crazy. Let's do that, Joe. Do you mind?
No, not at all.
'Cause I
Let's
want to be able to hear what you're telling me, and it keeps cutting out, and I'm like, I can't hear what he just said. Guys, I am so sorry. I've been on this internet all day with no issues, and now all of a sudden my signal's going in and out, and I don't know why. But
let's take a 12-minute break and come back at 8:50.
you guys want to do that? Join us at 8:50 over at Joe's channel. Let him get changed into something more comfortable, and we'll get on his channel, and we'll be back up and running in just a few minutes. So,
All right. Thanks everybody. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, Butterfly.
Joe, thank you. We'll meet you over on your channel in just a few minutes. Send me the link and everything.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks again, and I am so sorry. Let's do this over there.